Welcome back to our series on how to EQ like a pro. Last week we talked about kick drums. This week we're getting into claps. Let's get into it. Welcome back to part 2 in the series on how to EQ like a pro. Today we're going to be talking about how to EQ your claps. Now I've got this session opened up. I picked this one. I just made this track this week, literally 2 nights ago with my friend Lavelle Dupree, and we're actually doing a collaboration with the owner of Twisted Funk Records, Ollie Sanders, and so I'm going to be sending this to him today to finish up and work on and add and do whatever he does to it. So I picked this because it had a lot of claps layered up, and as you can see, I've got 3 right here. So let's talk about this. If you missed my video last week on how to EQ your kick drums like a pro, go check that out. I'll leave you a link. There's going to be some similarities because number 1, you need to find good sounds. Finding good clap sounds is going to be imperative to having a good sound, and it will prevent you from having to do any EQ work. So that's step 1. Seriously, make sure you're using good sounds. And it does take time to train your ears to find what's good and not, so you got to keep practicing. You got to keep making music. But finding good claps is the first step that I would suggest that you need to do. The second thing that I want you to think about is when you're playing your productions is what is this maybe missing? I like to sometimes layer claps based on what they might be lacking. As you can see here, I started with 1 clap, and then I ended up, maybe it looks like I got rid of a clap because it says clap 2, and then I added something called a low clap, then I added something called a thick clap. And obviously those names can kind of give you an idea of what these layers are doing. This is 1 clap. This clap is adding some low beef to it, and this may be adding some thickness that might have been missing. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at these claps. If you notice at the arrangement, I don't even have this first one playing in the beginning. I only have these 2. And I might have done that to give the track a little bit more of a feel of changing up of the arrangement. Obviously, it comes in this breakdown, and you know, it could have been a mistake because this has been 1 night of work, or it was intentional, and I do remember that being fairly intentional. So let me go ahead and play you this first clap right here. And we're just gonna loop up this section. Okay, nice and thin. As you can see, it's playing during a breakdown. Then we've got this next clap right here. Very chunky, very low. And then we've got this one. This one is actually a clap that I think I designed and I pulled from a different song of mine. And it's great. It's like a nice, very chunky hand clap, and it's got some width. And so when you put them all together, you get that. And that's just, there's obviously EQ and processing, which I'll get into, but those layers make up that clap. And layering is a great way to get your clap bigger, sounding better, and you're not technically using EQ, but if you think about it, by stacking claps on top of each other, you're enhancing and making the EQ spectrum of that sound bigger. Now, the next thing you need to think about, though, when you do layer, you're going to have resonating frequencies. And so you could see on this clap, I didn't even put an EQ. And this isn't mixed yet, this track. So I will be going through and cleaning this up, but I got to give it to Ollie, and he's going to do his thing. So I didn't want to get too far along in the mixing stage. We're still in the production stage. But as you can see here, by shortening this clap, it cut off this tail, which is essentially almost carving space if you think about it. I'm eliminating a piece of the sound. And then I'm carving space here and making room for these other claps. And let's take a look at this one. This one has space carved out of it too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute these, and I'm going to go ahead and play you this without the EQs and bring this in and out. And you see how much longer that whole sound just got? And that can get in the way of other sounds in the mix. And so I want to clean that up. I want to get rid of that. And then all of a sudden that upper mid mud is gone. And I'm listening soloed, but when you do this, I recommend you do this in context with the rest of the mix. So don't solo these tracks. Listen to your mix and be EQing along so you can pinpoint exactly what's causing buildups. So let's do that again with the track. I'll go ahead and play this from here. So this is with the EQs on. First one off. Second one off. So you see there's a lot of mid-range. And then the clap just gets really long. So not ideal, but that's why you carve space, especially when you're doing lots of layers. Next tip I want to give you is ghost notes. And if you saw the video last week on kick drums, I talked about ghost notes with claps, and I'll talk about it again. You can shift your claps or your snares forward or backward, apparently to give ghost notes, which will trigger before or after, say, your kick drum. Since your claps are usually right on top of your kick drum in dance music, you might want to put some ghost notes in. And in the previous video, I actually had shifted the MIDI, but in this track, I used the track delay feature right here, and that is moving the track minus 2 milliseconds or minus 2 milliseconds over. So if I bring these over to 0, and this one's actually 4 later, now everything is just stacked right on top of each other. It's not ideal. Let's put this back. That one's late, and I made these two early. And all of a sudden, it just opened up the whole mix just by moving those sounds a few milliseconds. That can change the game so much, and that's not really EQ, but it's just shifting notes and making space and essentially carving space and letting things breathe, leaving room for things to sit in your mix well. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is called gluing, and you can glue your stuff together with compression. There is a glue compressor in Ableton you can use, or you can use classic emulations like the SSLG bus, which is a glue compressor, or you can use the famous API 2500, which is one of my favorite compressors as well, and that is also a bus compressor. When you glue something together, you want to use bus compression, so keep that in mind. Now, we're not in the mixing stage of this track, so I haven't got that far, and I may not even want to do that. But let's go ahead and group this up. I hit Command G to create a group, and I'm going to call this clap bus. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for my trusty, actually, you know what? Just so everybody can do this, we're going to grab the Ableton stock glue compressor. And right out of the gate, this thing is great as it is. But the threshold's at 0. The attack and the release are right in the middle, and it's a ratio of 4:1. If you don't know about compression, I suggest you learn it. This video is not about teaching you how to use compressors. If you want to learn about compression, leave me a comment down below. I'll make you a special video just for compression. But I'm going to bring down this threshold so you can see that the clap is now hitting. And you can even turn on soft clipping on this thing, which is by Cytomic. Now, if I wanted to keep the transient, I'll move the attack slower. Maybe bring the release in so it releases quicker. Let's bring it hard. And then mute it. Interesting. So now I've tamed the clap a little bit, but retained. I've kind of quieted down that transient, but I could also use some makeup gain to bring up the volume. Before, sounds like the claps are all kind of a mess. Now I've glued them together and made them sound like one clap, 3 claps into one. And so glue compression can be a great way to help make your claps and get them sitting nicely in your mix. And it's not about EQ, but it all ties in together. And so I wanted to mention that trick, glue compression. Thank you for watching this video on how to EQ your claps. If you have any questions, shoot me a comment down below. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and the bell notification will keep you up to date. Last week, if you missed it, we discussed how to EQ your kick drum. So you can go back and check that out. I'll leave you a link right here. Stay tuned for next week on how to EQ your snares.